A king should have his ministers watched. Then he should have the watchers watched. And then he should never let any of them know the others exist. That book was written around 2,300 years ago. Now, most people in the West will tell you that cold, calculating political strategy begins with one man, an Italian, Niccolò Machiavelli. His book, The Prince, is where they say realpolitik was born. But Machiavelli wrote that book in the year 1532. The Indian book, the one with the watchers watching the watchers, was already 18 centuries old by then. And the man behind it didn't just write about power. He took a teenage boy nobody had heard of and used him to bring down an empire. This is Tattva. And this is the story of Chanakya, the strategist the world forgot it had first. Let's start with what the text actually says. The book is called the Arthashastra, roughly the science of power and wealth. And I want to be honest with you from the beginning, because that honesty is the whole point of this channel. We don't know for certain that one man wrote every line of it. Scholars think it may have been built up in layers over time. The dramatic legend of a wronged Brahmin who trained a boy king is tradition, not courtroom proof. But here is what is not in doubt. The Arthashastra exists. It is real. And when you read it, it is astonishing how modern it sounds. Because this is not a book of prayers or poetry. It's a manual for running a state. And it is ruthless. It describes an intelligence service, not vaguely, in detail. A network of secret agents called the Gudha Purusha, the hidden men. There were spies who posed as holy monks, spies who posed as merchants, spies who posed as farmers, as students, as poisoners. There were women trained as agents. There were double agents. And most chilling of all, there were spies whose only job was to watch the other spies. Machiavelli advised a prince to be feared. Chanakya built the machine that does the fearing. Now, where does the boy come in? Legend says Chanakya was a Brahmin scholar who was insulted, publicly, by the king of the most powerful empire in India, the Nanda dynasty, humiliated in a royal court, and that he made a vow. He would not tie his hair again until that dynasty was destroyed. He had no army, he had no throne. What he had was a mind. So he found his weapon, a young man named Chandragupta Maurya. Legend says he spotted him as a boy, playing at being a king among other children, already giving orders like he was born to it. Chanakya took him, trained him, and pointed him at the empire that had humiliated them both. And here's what science and history can actually confirm. It worked. Chandragupta Maurya overthrew the Nandas. He pushed back the generals Alexander the Great left behind in India, and he founded the Mauryan Empire, the first empire to unite almost the entire Indian subcontinent under one rule, one of the largest empires in the ancient world. And behind the throne stood the teacher, not the king. Now here's where I have to be honest again, because this is where most people telling this story go wrong. It would be easy to say, India had a Machiavelli before Machiavelli, and ours was more ruthless. And the ruthlessness is real. But if you actually read the Arthashastra, you find something Machiavelli never wrote. Chanakya bound the king with a duty. He wrote that in the happiness of his subjects lies the king's happiness, in their welfare, his welfare. The king was not allowed to please himself. The spies, the strategy, the cold machinery of the state, all of it was meant, at least in theory, to serve the people's security and prosperity. A word for it recurs through the text: Yogakshema, welfare and protection. Machiavelli asked, how does a ruler keep power? Chanakya asked, how does a ruler keep power, and is he worthy of it? That's the part the Indian Machiavelli label misses. He wasn't a darker version of a European idea. He came first, and he was doing something the European idea never quite did. So no, I'm not going to tell you Chanakya was a saint. He designed a surveillance state 23 centuries ago and wrote instructions for assassination and deception without flinching. But I'm also not going to let the world file him under a name that came 1800 years too late. The strategist the West thinks it invented in Renaissance Italy was already old, already read, already tested, already used to build an empire on the banks of an Indian river, while Europe wasn't yet dreaming of the men who'd one day take the credit. That's the thing about a river like the one Chanakya walked beside. It doesn't announce what it's carried. It just keeps moving and waits for someone to look closely enough to notice what was there all along.